Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. And boy, James, let me tell you, Pat Mahomes, he got paid.
He got paid. I tell you what, hold on. If you call me James again, I'm going to come to the screen. All right? It's weird when you call me James.
That's your professional name.
I guess so. But he got paid. You're right. On to what's most important. It is incredible. My gosh.
Yes.
Give us the details. Tell us how it's broken down.
Yeah, so on the surface, it's a 10-year contract extension that with incentives can reach a total of $503 million. So that sounds absolutely insane, okay? I mean, that's just incredible. I mean, that sounds like a baseball deal for, like, the best player in baseball, like a Mike Trout deal or something like that. But when you dive a little deeper, it's not quite as crazy as it sounds. The contract includes just over $63 million in guaranteed money at the point of signing. And what I find this a little interesting, $141 million is guaranteed in the event of an injury. So I assume that means like a significant injury. I'm assuming they don't mean like a simple ankle sprain. That's going to have to be a pretty significant injury to trigger that, I'm assuming. But do you have any other details on like what the severity would have to be?
No, I don't have anything on the severity, but yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting as well, considering, I mean, he's a relatively healthy guy. But I guess
knee dislocation.
Yeah,
and the QB sneak.
Right, you need your insurance, right, at the end of the day. But how does it work with, a couple of things that you mentioned to me that I think are really important to talk about, and I really like the way that you break this down. As far as, like, the cap hit goes, like dead money from a yearly perspective, because I think that's the key, like you talked about. There's only $63 million guaranteed. When would it, talk to me about the yearly breakdown as far as the dead money goes if they were to do something crazy and offload a guy like Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that if you look at the dead cap money, essentially what it is really a 3-year deal with a guarantee of $63 million. I mean, it's not that insane when you look at it because they can't get rid of them the first 3 years, because if they get rid of them in the first year, it's a massive cap. I mean, really, but after 2022, after that 2022 season, where if they were to cut him, it would charge the cap almost $35 million in dead space. After that, they could get out of the contract. So 2023 and on, they can easily get out from that unless there's an injury, is what I'm saying. Unless there's a major injury, there's no reason why they couldn't get out of the contract if need be. Now, when I'm saying this, I don't anticipate the Chiefs wanting to get rid of Pat Mahomes after 2022 or hoping he's going to take less. I don't think that at all. I think that what this ends up being is a 3-year contract extension, and they will be reworking this deal at some point after 2022.
Right. The one thing that was interesting to me is there's very little in as far as signing bonus. So that means that if the Chiefs need to clear up some cap space to make roster moves, they can simply convert a portion of his yearly salary to signing bonus and create needed cap space. So that might not sound like a big deal for other players, but of course, as we know, quarterbacks, if you're talking about converting, if you look at these numbers, 21 million, 27 million in 2023, like you talked about, 34 and a half million. If you're converting large portions of that into a signing bonus and you're freeing up that cap space, you're really at least maintaining some semblance of flexibility.
Yeah, and I think what Pat Mahomes said, when I saw a couple of his quotes earlier, unfortunately I don't have them right in front of me, but basically he just said what most fans hope that their best player and their superstar would say is, but it normally never does, is that he doesn't want to be the guy that's eating up all the cap space. He wants to make sure that the Chiefs are still flexible enough when it comes to the cap to be able to put a good team around them. And that's just rare. And I think it's rare because players, not only do they want the respect and they want that mantle of being the highest paid, the next highest paid at their position until, of course, the next guy comes along, but also typically players get pressure from the NFL Players Association to continuously up the bar of their position when it comes to pay, because it only helps the people behind them and the people after them as well. So I'm surprised that that it looks to me like that he took a relatively, even though it starts out, you see 10 for 503 and you go, whoa, But really, in the end, I think he's going to end up helping his team out and taking a relatively team friendly deal, and probably a little bit less than he could have if he really wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it, and just so you guys know, we're referencing the Chiefs Wire. They have a really awesome breakdown. I'll leave the link in the description below so you guys can see the cap or the contract breakdown year by year. I think it's really good. And if you notice, like you talked about 2023, Dak Prescott is going to make $35 million this year. In annual salary, he doesn't, or roster bonus, whatever, same thing. He doesn't even get to that amount until 2000. He doesn't pass 35 million until 2025. That's a bargain. I mean, at the end of the day, for the
Dak's
Kansas
on
City
that transition tag, that crazy deal, but
you know what I mean? Even still, I think if I'm Patrick Mahomes, like he could easily get that as far as a floor when it comes to his yearly salary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that speaks to his flexibility and want to like you said, have a team built around him and not just be the only one standing. Now I want to kind of pivot here because it's really important to talk about this in reference to the Ravens. Lamar Jackson is a lot closer than people think to being in the same situation as Patrick Mahomes. And unlike Stephen A. Smith, I think that Lamar Jackson is the second best quarterback in the NFL. He doesn't even have him in his top 5.
Crazy. Blasphemy.
Steven. Blasphemy. Thank you. It's just asinine.
Yes.
And but one of the things I wanted to say is that you talked about it, Glenn. There's two sides of it. The fan in you wants him to take a hometown discount, as little money as possible, stay flexible. The agent, and then the person in you from a career perspective says, get as much money as you can, right? And like you said, he's getting pressure from NFLPA, from agents, stuff like that. But there's a couple things to consider, I think, just to kind of talk about Lamar and frame it, is that I think it's important to stay true to yourself. Like if you can find a way to support your family, live the lifestyle that you're going to want to live and be comfortable with and be happy with, because you only have this ride once, right? But if you can do that and still win, right? Like how much more joy do you get from already making $20 million a year to $28 million, right? Like at what line are you like, well, I'm living the same anyway, so It doesn't make sense to take more. And then, like you said, it might just be about a principle thing, taking as much money as you can because you're the next guy up. I don't know what's most important to Lamar, but I can reference Joshua Harrison saying that he's a loyal guy and he's about winning. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar type setup with Lamar Jackson as far as keeping that flexibility, but obviously being well paid. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think, well, first let me just say that I think there's really maybe only 2 guys in the league that can deserve a deal that's similar to what Pat got, because while it's essentially really a 3-year deal, with the way the injury clause is something we haven't seen before. The fact that they're going to, obviously, when the time comes, they're going to commit to Pat Mahomes because of the fact that he and Lamar do something that I think sets them apart from the rest, and it's that the fact that they make everyone around them so much better. And I think Lamar certainly put himself in that camp. And I think he would benefit a lot from that injury clause thing, just in case. Now, to this point, he's been extremely healthy. And honestly, from the data we've seen, there's nothing to suggest that would change. But I think it's important that clause be in there for both of those guys, because whether you're a pocket guy or a mobile guy, that hit could happen at any moment. And you need to make sure you have that guarantee. But to not have that all guaranteed to where it does remain, your team does remain flexible against the cap, I think that's important. But the question is, will Lamar have that chip? He said that he still has that chip on his shoulder. Does that chip make him want to lean towards being the highest paid guy? Does that chip pull him in that direction, or does he kind of do what he's shown us throughout his whole career, and he's a team first guy? So to me, if I would have to guess, I'm not in Lamar's head, but judging by the tattoo on his chest, that's all purple, that's big trust. I don't see him having any plans on leaving Baltimore. So therefore, I don't see him having that mentality of, I got to be the highest paid. I got to be the number one guy, because why would you already have that tattoo across your chest? I mean, he just doesn't scream to me a guy that's going to be kicking and screaming to be the highest paid guy. Now, I'm sure he's not going to want to be lowballed, not going to be disrespected. So I can see a similar deal like this where it still has the pal of being, wow, look at this. I'm 10 years, 503. But when you dig a little deeper, you realize that it's pretty team friendly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing, too, is that Lamar is going to be so young, up on this first contract. Similar to Patrick. I mean, think about it. Pat's only 24. Lamar just turned 23 a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
I think
what would it take for Lamar not to get this deal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, to me, it would have to be a serious injury. I'm not talking about.
Well, say injury aside, is there any chance other than injury that a performance, say they have another good regular season and they are out in the first round of the playoffs again, could that impact it?
No, I don't think so at all, because like you said, Lamar and Pat are in a category of their own, and they do it in different ways. But Lamar can do so. Football is such a team sport, and he can take on so much. He can carry so much of the offensive load by himself because of his versatility. It makes me think of, like, you remember the 76ers teams with Allen Iverson?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like 90% of the world that loved Allen Iverson can't name the starting five of that team that went to the finals.
Right.
Like, you maybe remember Eric Snow and
Coleman.
Yeah, Coleman and Mutombo and some,
Yeah.
But they're relative either at the back nine of their career or no names. They were just role players. But he could take on so much as a player that he could carry his team. Now, I want to win, right? Like, we're building a better team around Lamar, I think, than the 76ers are built around Iverson.
Yeah.
And I think Lamar's a better leader. But my point is that him and Pat can do so much as singular players to affect the game that really puts them in a category of their own. I don't even think it's fair to, like, Deshaun Watson is great. I don't think he is as dynamic as either guy.
It's hard because, like Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, these are great players. But I just think that there's those two at the top being Lamar and Mahomes, and then the rest of the guys fall somewhere in line behind them. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, because it's not like when Joe came up. Like, when Joe came up and got he's coming off Super Bowl MVP, it was more like, all right, Joe, we got to give it to you. Here you go.
Right.
Lamar, I feel like it totally feels different. It feels more, I don't want to say deserved or earned, because Joe, of course, was the MVP of the Super Bowl. But just from every other way you look at it, other than that run, it feels more deserved and stuff from Lamar, even though it's early on, than it was then. It almost felt like, for Joe, it felt like it was just his time. And with Lamar, it feels like, I don't know, he's like a face of the league. It's different that, those two.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, that I think is interesting is that I think everyone's reaction to Joe getting that deal was like, well, let's see what we can do with what we can afford, right?
Right.
And I think with Pat, everyone was stoked in Chiefs Kingdom, right? Because they're like, well, we have the best quarterback in the NFL locked up for the next 12 years, right? Because he's still got it's a 10-year extension on top of the 2 years he's got left. Yeah. And I think that it's going to be the same with Lamar. I don't really have a ton of trepidation when it comes to the money he'll be making, because he's so impactful.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. And I want to know, I'm curious about what you think. I'm going to stick with the NBA analogy here. With guys like Russell Westbrook and Blake Griffin that depend so much on their athleticism, right? They tend to have high peaks, but, because they're not tacticians, right? Like, they're not overly technical, their careers go up and down, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't age as well. Do you have any concerns with Lamar in that way, to where, like, what happens if he loses his wheels a little bit and he's not as much of a threat to run, right? Like, does that concern you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it would concern me if we didn't know Lamar was the worker that he's shown to be. As Josh Harris said, he's spent this offseason getting his Tom Brady on. Right. So to me, I don't have that concern, because he doesn't have that Johnny Manziel attitude that that I've already done it. Look what I've done. I've already won the Heisman. I've already now I'm the MVP, and he still doesn't treat himself as the reigning MVP. He's still hungry. He still has that chip on his shoulder, like he mentioned not too long ago. So I don't have the worry because I think his game will be able to overcome Father Time he's undefeated. So eventually Lamar will lose some speed, will lose some quickness. But I think at that point, he will have developed his passing game to the point where it's not going to impact him that much on the field. Now, when he loses that speed and quickness, of course, we're lucky enough that we got a long time before that happens. But when that does happen, he will more than make up for that loss by the other parts of his game.
Yeah, by improving his technical skills. That's a great point. So, you kind of hopefully see it going this way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, it's not like he just doesn't to me, even though he takes off with the ball a lot, he just doesn't take a lot of big shots. And so it just doesn't worry me that much.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then even if he loses a step or two, you're talking at like 35, 36 years old.
Yeah, he'll probably be Cam Newton at that point, because at that point he'll probably be bigger. And yeah, he might lose a little bit of speed, but then he'll just be as fast as Cam Newton was at his peak.
Jeez, well, I'm interested to see how this affects Lamar Jackson. The other monkey wrench you got thrown there is right now he doesn't have an agent.
Well, yeah, he did. Yeah, that's true.
His mom's his manager.
His mom's his manager, and with the draft pick, it's slotted, so it's a little more easy. It's a little easier to negotiate that contract than it will be for this one. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he brings on any extra, financial advisor, any type of agency. But I want to say this, and I wish I would have said this earlier. I hope we didn't lose anybody yet. But Pat Mahomes' deal was something that the Chiefs had to do. They had to figure out a way to do it. So all these people saying that Pat Mahomes made too much money, the Chiefs are stupid, they're going to destroy their franchise now. It's nonsense. What was the alternative?
Right.
Were they going to let Pat leave? Absolutely not. And what were they going to do? Go, we're not going to pay you that much, Pat. Sorry, you got to take middle of the row money. No, you have. And so what they did was they were creative. They came out with a contract note like nothing we've ever seen before in the NFL. So I thought it was a great deal by the Chiefs, and it was a win-win. And all those people saying that they're great. What was the alternative? Just
ask
hope
the Cowboys.
You hit again. Hope you hit again in the draft and get another Pat Mahomes. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, ask the Cowboys how they're doing with their alternative, right?
Oh, and how stupid were the Cowboys for not signing Dak? Because now, guess what, Jerry Jones? That price tag went up.
Yep. And Dak wants 4 years, and that annual salary, like you said, just went up, and it keeps going up. So, yeah, make sure that you guys let us know what your thoughts are. We want to know how you feel about the contract with Patrick Mahomes, but also how it relates to Lamar Jackson, how it relates to the Ravens in the future. I think Glenn and I both trust that it will work out in our favor, and also that we have the best GM in the league. I think he's going to get as creative, if it is equally creative as the Chiefs, if not more creative, to make it work and keep our team competitive while being fiscally responsible, which is what he talked about from day one, taking over for Ozzie. But also make sure to subscribe. We're really working on that 1,000 subscriber milestone, and we appreciate the support of all of our fans. That's right. We are so close. So make sure to take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, and we'd really appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.